This is a addendum as well as a response to the video that I previously made. Don't spend, or I think it's don't waste now. Don't waste $80, go retro. And the main reason for me to make this video is because there was a few things that were brought up in the comment section of that video in regards to things such as like the price increase, the tariffs, my intentions for making that video, other ideas that people had about, you know, what to do instead of what I said in regards to like going retro, as well as me being rich, privileged, as well as a narcissist. Now, I don't intend for you to look at my sweaty, disgusting face right now because currently it's like 90 degrees in this room. I don't have any AC, so that way I could protect my computer from like turning off, like from the power breaker, like tripping, as well as so that way I could like keep any like excess noise like intruding on the audio recording that I'm doing right now. So to prevent you from having to deal with looking at my disgusting face, I'm probably gonna have some footage of a video game playing, so just some some visual stimulation, so that way you don't get bored. We know how people are nowadays. I don't know what game it's gonna be. I guess just Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing for GameCube. I'm just gonna set it in stone right here, future me. So get to playing that right now. We'll start from a fresh save. You know, outside of that, I would like to get started with this, so that way I could get this video over with, so I could put the AC back on. So my first point right here is my intentions with the video, and so I have two intentions. Of course, the most obvious one of them being I wanted to show people that there are alternative ways of enjoying video games because, you know, nowadays, like I've said before, and like many like news outlets and like gaming websites and stuff have talked about, video games are going up in price. In a very rare occurrence, video games are raising their prices instead of lowering. And for that, a lot of people are pretty nervous and are kind of concerned because, you know, soon they may eventually be priced out of playing their new favorite video games that interest them. And it's a shame. It is a shame. And honestly, I don't know if there's going to be any ways of solving that other than just to get richer. And for some people, that's not a choice that you could easily make. You could say, like, you know, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, but you know, some of us don't have bootstraps to pick ourselves up from. So I wanted to show people that retro gaming can be an alternative method of enjoying video games. Like some people did say, it could be kind of expensive, and in some cases it can be, depending on some video games. Like say the Silent Hill games, those have been pretty much just raising in price over the years, and there's no stopping it. And for that, I have to say, if you can't get yourself a copy of Silent Hill 2, considering there's no real way to access it easily, I'm gonna just have to say you might have to find another way to get access to that. And yes, it can be expensive, but it could also be pretty cheap. Like a lot of those consoles that I showed off in that video, I didn't have. I mean, I had them while growing up, but, you know, due to things like me being like, you know, poor as a young child and needing to sell some stuff to get some money for new games, I ended up losing said consoles and I had to buy them like in my adulthood. And those things I bought like over the course of like, you know, 5 years or so, starting in 2020-ish. And yeah, it can be expensive, but a lot of those consoles I bought were around like maybe $50, $60, $70. And a lot of the times those consoles came with a bunch of other things. Like they would come with games. They would come with I remember one of the PS2s that I bought came with like a ton of controllers. I kid you not. I think I got like 4 controllers. I didn't even have a multi-tap with that thing. They just gave it all to me. And sure, a lot of those controllers were kind of ass. A lot of them were those, like, you know, those Pelican, those Mad Cats, those controllers that you would only give to like your like nephew or your younger brother or that friend that you don't want to come over, but your mom always forces them to come over because they want you to have more friends. that kind of controller. But yeah, it can be expensive, but those consoles I bought were really cheap. And considering what I said earlier, how some games are just really, expensive for the sake of being expensive, or just literally impossible to get. They're just not anywhere like online. Like they're not anywhere on any like marketplaces like Xbox Live Marketplace. They're not on like the PlayStation Store. They're not on the eShop. Like for those games, there probably wouldn't really have to be a problem. Of course, there's a problem for like, people like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. They don't want you to do that, even though you're not paying them directly. You're going on the secondhand market to get those games. Like, there's really not that big of a reason, I feel, to find other ways to get those games that are impossible to find or just too expensive or what have you. Because, retro gaming is eventually, I don't want to say it's going to die off, because these consoles can only last so long. These games can only last so long. There's things like Discrot, which actually exists. It's a platform that's not going to last forever, and we have to think about ways to preserve. And unfortunately, some people have to deal with things like emulators and piracy and stuff. It's a sad state of affairs, but in order to play the games that we wanted to play, like, we might have to do it. We might have to resort to that. Also, having things like hacked consoles and stuff makes it easy for people to just have backups or whatever of games, so that way they don't have to worry about like finding like super duper expensive discs or discs that don't exist. I wanted to show people that, there's cheap ways to play games. And of course, they're not the most newest ways of playing games, but these games are still really fun. Like, I personally play a lot of old games, and of course, probably the most played game I have right now is Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered. The heart of that game is a game from 2006 or 2007, so still pretty much old. Like, I'm just, I don't know, I guess I find it easy because I'm a retro gamer at heart, and I don't know, but a lot of people, I feel, could find a lot of fun. They could definitely derive a lot of fun from games from PS2, Xbox 360, stuff like that. They're really more modern than you think, trust me. Now, the second reason I made this video was, and it's a bit of a selfish reason, and it's one that I wanted to do for a while, because I know I've gotten a lot of comments, questions about my game collection. I wanted to show off my game collection that I've been building up. And of course, it's not the biggest one. I mainly focus on getting consoles, because I want to hack those consoles. I really like hacking consoles. In fact, I feel like the most fun out of getting a hacked console is just hacking it. That's what I find the most exciting. And just like finding soft mods or even hard mods that I could easily install. It's not as like technically like savvy as one would expect. You're not like going into like the mainframe and like hacking the console. Sometimes all it is just like getting like a hacked memory card or like putting a file on a USB stick. Sometimes it's just that simple, but the process is what I feel is the most fun to me. A lot of those consoles I don't even play, honestly. Like, you gotta be us if you're thinking that like I'm gonna go into like my super duper hot like garage and take out my Xbox just so I could play like, I don't know, like Fatal Frame 2 when I could just like emulate that same game on my PC, But yeah, most of those consoles I have are hacked or are with the intention of hacking, and that's where I derive a lot of my fun. I do play the consoles, like especially when I get them brand new or get them brand new from the seller. I play them and then I'm like, okay, I got a lot of fun out of that. All right, I'll put you in the box of shame until next time I need to take you out. But yeah, I really wanted to make a video just showcasing like my collection and stuff, and I feel like I was able to do that pretty well. Like, I did have that reason to show off my consoles, but I also wanted to just, make a point with like the first point. Like, I wanted to combine both the points together so that way I can make, something that people can understand. Like, I'd show off all these consoles that I own. Like, great, awesome. Do you know how many games exist on each console that I could potentially play in the future? And then with that, I could show people like, hey, there's so much games that, you know, you're missing just because you're sticking with PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, Xbox One, stuff like that. There's a lot of games that are like under your radar, but if you manage to go back in time and, you know, look at the older games, there's going to be a lot of fun to play there. So yeah, wanted to show people there's other ways of enjoying games, as well as showing people my super awesome epic gaming collection. I know I didn't really talk too much about how I hacked all those consoles, or like it was my intention to hack them, but I kind of wanted to mainly talk about like my personal experiences getting those consoles. And man, that first point I wanted to make was probably way longer than I was expecting. I will promise you that the other points that I go on to next will be much more shorter. So my next topic is the Switch. I excluded that because it was a console that came out after 2013. And yes, I feel like the Switch, you know, despite the fact that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be coming out, it's still a very, very modern platform. Like, that console has lasted for 8 years, and I know a lot of people are talking about like, oh, I'm playing like all my games on the Switch and stuff. All I need is the Switch, and that's great. That's amazing. I love my Switch too, but the Switch doesn't really fall into like the retro category, so I didn't want to talk about it. And yeah, I know you can play a lot of retro games on there, but you're limited to what the Nintendo Switch Online has to offer. And while a lot of those games are like handpicked to be the perfect games that anyone would want to play when they're like in a retro mood, it's not all the games. There's still a lot of stuff missing that, you know, really doesn't have any reason to be missing. So that's why I excluded it. I know it's a really great console. It's really cheap, and you could I remember someone like left a comment where they're just like, I got a $100 Switch Lite, and that's it. They didn't really elaborate on it. They just stated that they had like a Switch. I don't know if they were trying to show off, because I was showing off my library as well, but it was such a weird comment. Yeah, sorry Switch, I had to exclude you. I really love the console, but just, you know, it's not retro enough. Like, it is almost like 10 years old, but it still doesn't really count as retro to me. And now my next point is the PC and Steam. Now, a lot of people brought up, buddy, there's billions of games on the PC. There's billions of games on Steam, on Epic Game Store, stuff like that. And I get it, I understand. But for me, PC kind of falls in this really weird like area, because the PC doesn't have any generations to speak of. Like, of course, like throughout the years, like it's ran alongside like, you know, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Series X, stuff like that. But the PC doesn't have generations. So that's the main reason why I excluded it. I understand why people, you know, thought it should have been a part of it, because, you know, you could get a lot of the same games that are on the PS2, Xbox, whatever, on your PC. And yeah, it does like sort of kind of count, but in my eyes, the PC doesn't really seem to fall into the same categories as those consoles. So that's the reason why I had to exclude it, as well as the Steam Deck, which, you know, the Steam Deck is just, that's not a retro console, dude. That came out in like late 2010s, I think early 2020. I'm sorry about that if I happen to offend anybody. I am personally a mostly PC gamer. Like, I have a PS5, but I play like 99% of my games on PC. I played like Demon's Souls recently, just so I could play that and beat it and just get it out of the way. Good game. The bosses kind of sucked, but I won't elaborate on that any further. But sorry, PC Master Race, that's why I did not include you. All right, next point. Let me bring out my good old-fashioned phone right here. Backlogs. So backlogs are, you know, something that you could also rely on as a way to enjoy video games during this very, very stressful, maybe uncertain period of gaming where things are just getting more expensive. And yeah, I think most gamers nowadays have some sort of backlog that, you know, just keeps building. Like, we buy games, we don't play them. This also goes doubly so for PC gamers. Like me, I have so many freaking games that I have yet to play, but I bought on Steam just because they were good deals. So yeah, if you don't want to do retro and you want to stick with your modern consoles, then of course, backlogs are certainly something that we could all rely on during the next few years or however long this is going to last. And, you know, don't let me tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Like, you know, if you want to do retro or if you want to do if you want to do retro backlogs, then by all means, absolutely. The world is your oyster, and, you know, we're just living in it, I guess. I'm living in the oyster now. You know, I don't like oysters, so I mean, I hope living in it is a lot different compared to eating it. I hope. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that too. I love retro games, but I'm definitely going to look at my Steam like backlog and see what's there to play. Let's move on to the next point. The price of retro. Ugh, I already talked about that, but I guess I could go further. Maybe I could even bring up like some receipts and stuff that I got. But yeah, like I said, retro gaming, it's as expensive as you want it to be. Like, consoles are pretty cheap, weirdly enough. I don't know if they're going to be cheap now because, you know, things are raising in price, but, you know, like I said, I bought my like Xbox, I bought my PS2. Those consoles were like less than 100 each. I think the Xbox was 80, either 80 or 70. Let me check. Wow. Okay. So the Xbox was $45. Yeah, and I bought this in 2021. What about the PS2? PlayStation. I don't know if they're going to go off of PlayStation 2 or PS2. So the fat PS2 I bought was only $60, and that came with the controller. So the PS2 Slim I bought was $50. $50, and that came with like a ton of garbage. $50. $50 for a console. What was it? 60 for the PS2 like fat? I don't understand when people say retro is incredibly expensive. I'm gonna harp on the same point that I said earlier at the start of this point. Retro gaming is only as expensive as you want it to be. If you're smart, you can find deals like this pretty easy. I didn't even have to look that hard. This was just, I went on OfferUp. I'm just like, I'm gonna buy a PS2 today. And I found it. I found it without even having to search for it. And if I could find it, I have the worst luck imaginable. Talk to any people that I know IRL. I'm not gonna dox anyone, so you can talk to them so you can get this testimony. I have the absolute worst luck out of almost anyone that you could probably ever meet. And the fact that I was able to find these deals without having to try just goes to show that maybe you can probably find those consoles for way cheaper. Way cheaper, potentially. Oh, man. Retro. I was almost going to skip over this point, but, you know, I feel like bringing out those receipts were probably a really good use of that point. Okay, let's move on over to the next one. Why not emulate? Okay, so, I definitely think I touched on it. If I didn't, I'm sorry. My memory is pretty foggy right now. A lot of things are going on in life, but I believe I touched on how I mainly emulate like retro consoles now. It's just so much more convenient, and honestly, like the pros that you get from emulation probably outweigh like the pros that you would get from like playing on the actual console. Like, of course, you get that nostalgic experience, but like I feel like I get more of a nostalgic experience playing the actual game than playing it on the console. Like, of course, it feels great and it feels amazing playing the console, but just like at the end of the day, I'm playing for the game. So, you know, I want to play the game in the most convenient way possible. I want to play the game and, you know, up-res the hell out of it to make it look good. Sometimes it doesn't look good, then I'll, you know, down-res it to normal resolution. You can even add on like things like texture, like upgrades. You could add on like patches, fixes, stuff like that. There's probably no reason to not emulate. Like if you're a purist, then I understand why you would say emulation is not the way to go. But personally to me, I feel like emulating is the way to go to me, like for me. And I'm the one that's harping on playing retro consoles. But yeah, it's really up to you. Some people find it convenient like some people find it not as, satisfactory, like hooking up the CRT. It's like playing vinyl records and stuff. It's like, the whole experience is heightened by the fact that you have to like be inconvenienced by things like plugging in the controller, plugging in the console, taking out the CRT, plugging in the component or composite or whatever you got going on. SCART if you're British, oi mate. Something that I do occasionally do, and it's just occasionally. I mainly want to play games like, through emulation. And for the people that bring up emulation, there you go. More power to you. Play your retro games through there. For those who are purists, play it that way. Just play retro. Just do the retro. It doesn't matter how you do it. Just do it. You'll have fun. Trust me, you're going to enjoy this. I hope you're having fun, because we're going to move on to some other points that are not going to be as fun, because I'm probably going to get kind of mad, throw around some chairs. So the next point I have is, I am wealthy? This guy right here is me? I got these comments more than once, surprisingly enough. And that's surprising to me, because I have to say, I don't think I was wealthy at all. Like, yeah, I had these consoles, but like, I don't think in any way, shape, or form I was like wealthy at all. Like, I don't think there was not like any other like amenities that really came with like my living situation at all. And like, I don't know. I feel like my parents definitely did struggle. And like, I talked about this in a comment already. I said that, people buy their kids things when they can't really afford them, because they just want their kids to have that thing. It may be like a detriment to like the parents' like wallet and stuff like that, but the fact that, they get to see the smile on their kid's face, that's worth more than any money that they could save from not buying that thing. Some parents are just selfless like that, and I feel like my parents definitely were to a certain degree, because I'm pretty sure they had a lot to deal with. They had a lot of like bills, I'm sure. I know they had like, cars, they have insurance, they had 3 kids to take care of, as well as each kid's having like their own needs and necessities and all that. And I don't want to dive any further. I'd want to, just so that way I can elaborate further and so people can understand why I don't really consider myself wealthy. But trust me, absolutely trust me, I don't think I was considered wealthy in the slightest. Maybe lower middle class, which nothing to freaking brag about at all. Definitely not. Like maybe in the 2000s, I guess, maybe, but not really. I mean, if you're like lower middle class, like middle class now, I would definitely consider that maybe bragging rights right now, because everyone's freaking suffering right now. It's crazy what's going on in the world like nowadays. I'm not going to harp on it too much, because I don't want this to turn into some sort of like soapbox. I mean, I guess it kind of already is, me talking like without like stopping at all or anyone to interrupt me. But just, yeah, I definitely wasn't wealthy. And for those people to just go and assume, it's just, that's all it is. It's just assumptions. You're wrong. You are absolutely wrong. I was not wealthy, like, in the slightest. My next point, I feel, is probably the most important point. I am privileged. Yes, I would actually say that's the case. Not wealthy, I was privileged. And these two, like, while they do have some like potential correlation, they don't exactly equal the same thing. You know what I mean? A privileged person gets a lot of things handed to them, on a silver platter. Wealthy people just, their life is the silver platter. They're not getting handed to it. It's just, it's expected. But for me, a lot of those consoles, and I talked about this in a reply to one of those comments. A lot of those things I did not deserve. A lot of those like consoles, a lot of those toys, a lot of those like things that my parents got me, I personally don't believe that I deserved in the slightest, because I talked about this before. I didn't outright say it in the videos, but I thought people would be smart enough to realize, to infer from the stories that I said, especially the one for the DS, the Wii, the Xbox 360 waiting outside. Like, I thought those would be enough for people to understand that I was privileged. And when I mean privileged, I mean spoiled. I was a spoiled f***ing brat. A lot of those consoles I definitely did not deserve. I'm not wealthy. Do not ever say I was wealthy, because I'm not. I'm definitely not wealthy now, but I was spoiled back then. You know, my parents, they got them for me because, you know, they wanted me to shut up. They wanted me to stop asking for that stuff. They wanted me to stop crying for that stuff. You know, I was a little shithead. I acted up. They of course say, you know, I was a good kid, but, you know, for the memories that I can remember, I definitely wasn't that good of a kid. But yes, I definitely did not grow up in money, but my parents were nice enough to want to humor me, get me those consoles. And in fact, a lot of those consoles that I showed off, I ended up buying later in life. Like I talked about in the previous points, about the PS2, about the PS2 Slim, about the Xbox, Game Boy Advance, bought the DS Lite, I bought the new 3DS, I bought the Xbox 360S, the slim one, the first slim model. I bought those with my hard-earned money that I made myself at my job. I feel like we've already squeezed out as much as we could talk about this point, because all I really needed to say was I'm spoiled. But like seeing like, you know, me being considered wealthy really grinded me, because you don't know who I am. A lot of people, 99% of the people in those in those comments, they don't know who the fuck they're talking about. Like they see this video and they immediately like assume that like I'm this wealthy guy. Like, you're just wrong though. You're wrong. Accept it, please. So that way we can stop talking about this stupid shit and I can move on to the next point. God, I got really heated by that. I'm so freaking annoyed by that. Whew, so glad you don't have to look at this in full screen, because, oh God, I'm freaking sweaty, and that point got me super duper sweaty. Moving on, and I feel this last point is probably one that I could definitely agree with in some way. I am a narcissist. Which actually, you know, I'm a narcissist and apparently I'm a pathological liar. So I got that comment, the pathological liar comment. I'm like, what? What the fuck? Where in the world was I lying at all? Like, you don't even know where I was like, I don't know where I was like. YouTube comments in general, they could be some funny stuff, but the pathological liar one, I will not harp on. I just thought that one was really funny, as well as really stupid. Because like, how could you be so stupid to assume that I'm a pathological liar from this video where I'm talking about video game consoles, as well as talking about, like, you know, just talking about the current situation of video. I'm just a video game man, dude. That's all I do. Okay, moving on to the narcissist thing. I'm a narcissist. I don't really know what people meant when they were talking about that, but if they were talking about me just talking about video games and stuff, just talking, just whatever, I might be, because honestly, anyone that makes a video on YouTube and posts it, that's being narcissistic, because you made something and you want people to view it, so you're putting it on YouTube. So in a way, we're all narcissists on here. And honestly, all of us outside of the whole like scope of YouTube in general, we're all narcissists to a certain degree. We're all like looking out for ourselves, mainly ourselves, because it's all about self-preservation, baby. In this game called life, it's all about self-preservation. Some people take it way too far, but we are all narcissists. You can deny that fact and say you're not. You could say you're the most like selfless, like loving, caring person in the world, but buddy, I'm pretty sure you got some narcissism in there. Cause those comments are even weirder, but I'm trying to figure out, and I think maybe it has to do with like the stories that I said, which in a way, yeah, I guess you could say I was a narcissist. I was like, you know, wanting to get like my Wii. I was wanting to get my 360. I cried in the freaking Walmart because like I couldn't wait at the Walmart, even though waiting at the Best Buy was just way better. And I was like 12 years old or something. So, or no, like 11. Yeah, 11 years old. And yeah, I would say I was definitely a narcissist back then. That was narcissistic tendencies, but I was a f***ing kid, okay? Of course, I probably should have been like knowing better because I was like over the age of 10, but I was still a dumb kid at the end of the day. I was less than 13 years old. And there was even a story where I was like, I feel like definitely went against the whole narcissism thing, where I got my 3DS, where I was just like, my dad paid a lot of money for this. I feel bad. I don't want to open it. Of course, I probably shouldn't have felt that way because my dad wanted to buy it. Like, I asked him, I was like, I graduated. Can I get like this thing? You don't have to if you don't want to. And he was just like, son, you did a good thing graduating. A lot of people out there don't, especially people that chat in the YouTube comments. So here you go. Here's your purple 3DS. And I'm like, I didn't think you were gonna actually go through with it. Thank you. So yes, back then I definitely probably was, a narcissist focused only on myself. And nowadays I feel like that's definitely not entirely the case. Of course, like I said, we all have narcissistic tendencies. Don't deny it, because if you do, then you yourself are a narcissist. But yeah, it's just how it is when you're a kid. You don't really know the way the world works, and you think it all revolves around you, so you just can't help but be a little bratty, snot-nosed kid that wants everything and anyone to give them whatever their whim desires. But yeah, such strange comments that a lot of people have left, and as you can probably tell, some of them did get me heated. Because reading them, it's just like, you don't know me. You don't know anyone on the YouTube platform. Everyone here is, just not entirely their true self. That's pretty much like all the points that I wanted to make. Oh God, actually, I should talk about like this one other like dude who commented, and this guy was absolutely, definitely, his nose is right up there in the ass cracks of Miyamoto and Doug Bowser, because he was like going on this whole tirade about like how we hate Nintendo or whatever. And it's just like, dude, Nintendo's not safe from like, just because they make good games does not mean that they're safe from criticism. Nintendo makes a lot of stupid decisions all the time. Like, I love Nintendo. I absolutely do. But I just don't love a lot of the things that they do. And, there's really no reason to like throw yourself out into the line of fire just to save the multi-billion-dollar corporation that won't even know that you're gone. You could die right now, and trust me, Mr. Miyamoto, Nintendo themselves are not going to say jack shit about you, because you're just a number to them, dude. You're just a number to them. You got to realize that these corporations are not out for your best interest. They're out for your wallet most of the time. So yeah, that guy is even weirder. I feel like that, like, those things were direct, like the other things, like the narcissist, the wealthy stuff, that's like directed towards me. But this guy's he's hating on everyone, because he said like, you guys, or he said something like a collective group of people, including me with a bunch of other people, which I'm assuming he's talking about like everyone talking about like the raised prices and stuff for Nintendo products or whatever. Yeah, that guy's weird. If there's anything you wanted me to elaborate on that I didn't elaborate on, please let me know. I will definitely engage in the comments with this. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed the Animal Crossing footage. Thank you for watching. Bye.